Performance will get you the applause. Purpose will get you through the silence after it. Today I want to talk to you about how to find your spark and, more importantly, understanding how purpose is the only thing that lasts. Someone once asked me, Angie, with all the places you've lived, all the athletes you've coached, all the titles you've held, how did you find your spark? And I laughed because the spark wasn't something that I found. The spark was something that I chased. That spark pulled me across oceans and to stadiums filled with thousands, and to classrooms in China, and to government offices in Nigeria, and into boardrooms today where I work to build a more inclusive world. But the spark didn't begin in any of those places. My spark began on a track. Track and field is a brutally honest sport. The clock doesn't lie, the tape measure doesn't lie, your efforts, your hearts is displayed for the world to see. And I learned something at a young age, the first time that I stepped onto the track, that you cannot hide from your truth. Track and field forced me to face who I was, and more importantly, who I wanted to become. I remember watching the Montreal Summer Olympic Games in 1976, and I know most of you weren't even born then. But I remember watching the Romanian gymnast, Nadia Comaneci, score for the first time in women's gymnastics history, perfect tens. I also remember watching Team USA in track and field performances as well. Evelyn Ashford, she didn't medal at those Olympic Games, but she would go on to become an Olympic champion and make 3 Olympic teams. And I said to myself, Angie, one day I want to go to the Olympics and I want to march into those opening ceremonies like I had seen all those athletes do. Well, I was fortunate. I qualified for 2 Olympic trials. I made the finals of the women's heptathlon. I made national teams, and then I also became a national coach, and I got to travel the world as a result of track and field. But it wasn't until I began coaching that I realized that it wasn't really about producing stronger and faster athletes. My job was to help other people light their internal fire. My job was to help other people find their spark like I had done those many years ago. I remember talking to my student athlete, Muriel Ohore. At age 17, I said, Muriel, one day you're gonna be at the Olympic Games. You're gonna be on that world stage and you're gonna be performing for the world to see. She laughed at me. Coach Taylor, what on earth are you talking about? I can't even beat you right now. And I laughed because I said to her, I see the potential, I see the spark, I see the desire, and I know you will achieve those goals one day. Well, she became an NCAA champion. She became a 4-time Olympic qualifier. She became a world champion, and she became one of the fastest women in the world, running a 10.78 in the women's 100 meters. And her first Olympic Games was the London Olympics in 2012. After the London Olympic Games, I got recruited, and I moved to an entirely different world. Harbin Engineering University, located in Harbin, China, the most northern part of China, bordering Mongolia and Russia. So if coaching tested my leadership, China tested my curiosity. Here I was, an American track and field coach, getting recruited and started working at a Chinese engineering university, surrounded by students that were brilliant, disciplined, and had a deep investment in learning. And I didn't just teach there, I learned there. I learned how communication requires more than just language. It requires empathy, patience, and presence. I learned how curiosity is a flame that never burns out unless you stop feeding it. China sparked in me a deeper hunger to understand people, places, and the power of education. I didn't just learn there. Again, I learned so many different things, and I didn't just teach there. China opened up my world as well as my mind. After China, life pulled me into a completely different place. I got recruited again. This time, Nigeria. I became the first director of the sports, like the National High Performance Director for Team Nigeria. And I had the opportunity to work in the president's office. I had the privilege of serving two presidents, President Goodluck Jonathan, as you see on my left side, and President Muhammad Buhari. Now, the first time I attended a meeting in Nigeria, because they don't give you the blueprint on how to navigate once you go to a country that's history, culture, expectations, and pace of life are utterly different from your own. So my first meeting was supposed to start at 9 a.m., but coincidentally, it started at 1 p.m. I was surrounded by military officials. I was surrounded by government advisors, sports leaders, and I thought to myself, Angie, what on earth are you doing here? And that spark, that quiet whisper answered, you're growing. Growth rarely happens in comfort. It happens during challenges, maybe it's a puzzle, maybe it's a stretch. I watch Nigerian athletes overcome obstacles most people could never imagine or never witness. Limited facilities, high expectations, scarce resources, unpredictable electricity and clean water. But yet they were still able to rise and to compete on the world stage. Their spark was forged in adversity. And in serving them, my spark grew a little bit brighter, a little bit stronger, and definitely more resilient. So, one of the greatest privileges of my life has been to coach athletes for Team USA. I mean, we get all the swag and everything. And also one of the great privileges of my life has to coach the Nigerian athletes as well. I realized something very monumental during these times. Your spark is not about you. Your spark is about who you ignite. Coaching is a sacred trust. You're holding people's lives and dreams, aspirations in your hands. And nothing sustains your own spark like helping others discover theirs. I realized that I'm not just a coach, I'm a spark keeper. You see the pictures here. And the top picture, that's Toby. Toby was identified as one of Nigeria's hopeful athletes. Well, she made 3 Olympic teams, she became a world champion, and she is currently the world record holder in the women's 100 hurdles. Fastest time in ever in the history. You see the bottom picture with the athlete with the baton holding it up in her hands. That's Sonia Richardson, now Ross. You might have seen her on the Atlanta Housewives. But Sonia Richards was on my 2003 World Championship team. She was a member of the women's 400 relay, 4x400 relay. And I remember going to the 17-year-old Sonia Richards. I said, Sonia, nobody thinks that we can medal. We're not even expected to podium. I understand that you 4 women are considered like nobodies right now. But I see the potential, and I know that one day you're gonna do great things. Well, that 17-year-old, when I asked her if she could anchor that relay, she looked me in the eyes and she said, Coach, I will not let you down nor my country. And that 17-year-old went to anchor that relay, and Team USA won gold, beating the Russian team and beating the Jamaican team. Sonia Richards would go on to make 3 Olympic teams, become an Olympic champion in the London Olympic Games, a world champion, and a former American record holder. And then you see the picture, Blessing and me. That was the Rio 2016 Olympics, the opening ceremonies. But Blessing went on to Tokyo and became a silver medalist in the women's freestyle wrestling. Ironically, she lost to Team USA. And ironically, I sit on the board of directors for Team USA Wrestling. But go figure. Okay, so I feel very proud and privileged to know that I had something to do with sparking these athletes and getting them to believe in themselves and to achieve some great things. So the spark kind of like evolves as we do. So today I serve as the Chief Inclusivity Officer here at Alfred University. And people often ask me, Angie, why did you move from high performance athletics to belonging and inclusivity? But to me, it's the same mission. I mean, high performance requires belonging. Peak potential requires safety. Excellence requires that every voice, every identity, and every story has a place. My job is not about checking a box. Inclusivity is not just an initiative. It is a spark igniter. And so every time I step into my place, I know that my role today is about creating environments where sparks don't get extinguished because of race or gender, identity, nationality, or background. When people feel seen, they shine. After living and working across 3 countries, coaching elite athletes, and serving in roles I never even imagined, here are 3 truths that I've learned about finding and protecting your spark. Lesson 1, you have to believe that it's not about what you want to do. My purpose has always been the same, to help people grow beyond what they believe is possible. So don't start by what you do, start by why you do it. Lesson 2, we do not ignite alone. Every person that I've had the opportunity to work with, every culture that I've learned from, has added oxygen to my flame. And I've realized something, that you need people to ignite you. You need people to help you along the way. You need people who support you, who challenge you, and sometimes frustrate you, but they always grow you. Lesson 3, you have to show up and be ready. Some of the brightest moments in my career have been after setbacks, after doubts, after I questioned whether I was even enough. But every time I stepped back into the mission, back into my purpose, and I made a decision that I would not let anything stop me from fulfilling my purpose. I wouldn't let anything make me step back from what I have been called to do. Your spark is a gift, so protect it. I've lived long enough, traveled far enough to know this, that every culture has a spark, every community has a spark, and every individual carries a spark. And when you put them all together, you create something very magical. You build possibility, you build connection, and you build light. And so my work, our work, is to open doors, is to clear paths, and to create spaces where every spark can ignite. So, your spark is waiting. If you feel stuck, if you feel uncertain, if you feel like your spark is flickering, let me remind you that it's there. And all it needs is a moment, as a challenge, a curiosity, a connection, or a leap for it to burst into flame. I found my spark on a track. I found it again in China, in Nigeria. I found it here at Alfred University. I found it in every athlete and every student that I have ever worked with. And again, every single time I will still choose to step into my purpose. So ask yourself, not what do I want to do, but what ignites me? What lights my soul? What is my spark? And when you find it, you've got to let it shine so brightly that it lights the paths for others. Thank you.